Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Okay, preemptive like. Why American healthcare is the worst in the developed world. Hey, listen, there are a lot of problems, but I am not, I think maybe 10% at the most of my audience is from North America, and I'd say only about 7.5% are American. Most of you are European. So I'm not just going to suck up to you guys to get as many likes as I can and few dislikes. I speak my mind, and but I'm not set in my belief, and I'm ready for new information. So open-minded, but I'm not going to be afraid to speak my mind here, okay? Whether you guys like it or not.
This episode is brought to you by CuriosityStream. Get free access to Nebula, the new streaming platform built by and for creators, when you sign up for CuriosityStream at the link below.
Oh, guys. Make sure to use their link for CuriosityStream/Second Thought.
I wonder if you could tell me how expensive you think calling an ambulance out to your location is in America.
I've never taken an ambulance. I've never even been in a hospital. Like with me at the visiting, I've been. Except for that one time, almost 29 years ago. $1,200. $1,500.
Is there a price for that?
Yes,
Jeez, $100?
$2.5 grand.
For what? Why?
They billed our insurance company over $3 million.
It's got to depend on, what is that, the gas money? Like they had to spend the gas to get over to you and pick you up. And so the gas money is like $2,000. That's insane.
For the cost of transplant. I don't know what people do without insurance. How could you even begin to pay that?
She said the bill is up to $80,000 already, and she said, Mrs. Weinkauf, I hope you realize that you're responsible for this bill. I thought, what am I going to do? I've worked my whole life. Is this how my life is going to end?
In a previous episode, I briefly touched on the failures of the American healthcare system. That section of the video prompted all sorts of responses in the comments, mostly from Europeans who were horrified to learn that Americans have to pay for an ambulance.
Watching this from the EU, y'all are crazy. I'm not going to read all these.
Ride to the hospital, but also a handful of brave patriots who claim, without evidence, that the American healthcare system is the best in the world. This video is for those people. Let's jump right in.
That's me, guys. No, I don't think we're the best. Hey, interesting how the Statue of Liberty is on like a star fort. But no, I don't think we're the best. We have the best healthcare in the world. I don't think. The problem is that I think that America is a country with a what's it called? Not something graphic. With an amount of people with crazy different viewpoints, where you either need to be like super together, like China or Japan or something. China's not capitalist, I guess. They're somewhat. Okay, let's listen.
Throw a bunch of statistics at you, and then we'll look at the root cause of the problem. America spends more money per capita on healthcare than any other nation on Earth. You would think that this expenditure would guarantee the best care in the world. That is not the case. In fact, despite being the most expensive healthcare system on Earth, consuming over 16% of our GDP, it's one of, if not the least effective in the consuming over 16% of our
How many $1 trillion is that?
GDP, it's one of, if not the least effective in the developed world. We spend over $10,000 per capita on healthcare, and not only is the quality of care subpar, we don't even cover everybody. Compare this to places like Germany, who pay drastically less per capita and guarantee coverage to all their citizens. There were over 27 million uninsured Americans in 2018, and that number will have skyrocketed in recent months, thanks to the millions of layoffs across the country. Even before the epidemic, we had more uninsured and underinsured citizens than any other developed nation. In addition to not covering a large portion of the population, even those with excellent, by American standards, health insurance struggle to pay medical bills. Over 25% of insured people reported having difficulty paying for the exorbitant cost of their treatment. Of this group, 63% had to pay most or all of their savings to cover the medical bills, and 42% had to get a second job. Life-saving drugs in America often cost 10 times what they cost in other countries. For example, in Canada,
Insulin?
one vial of insulin costs $32. In the United States, the same drug from the same factory costs $300. And that's not even an extreme example. Take the HIV drug Truvada.
There's no way you have to pay $300. Like, what if you're jobless? If you're on welfare and have Medicaid, are they just going to let you die? If that's the case, that's terrifying, but I almost want to look that up right now. Is it $300 even for a very poor person?
Costs $300. And that's not even an extreme example.
I'm making excuses like it's not. Obviously, that's terrible.
Drug from the same factory costs $300. And that's not even an extreme example. Take the HIV drug Truvada. In Australia, it costs just $8. In the United States, it costs $2,000, despite US taxpayers footing the bill for its development. Every year, over 500,000 people go bankrupt trying to pay their medical bills. In a country where 40% of the population can't afford a surprise $400 expense, an ambulance ride to the hospital will cost you more than twice that amount. And all of this is happening in the richest
Does that mean like if I've suffered from panic attacks a lot, which is like I haven't had a lot of medical issues, okay, but the best example I can give is a panic attack. All right, so that honestly that's not like a huge severe thing, but it's something that I have actually contemplated calling an ambulance for because I thought I was like having a heart attack. I'm very used to panic attacks now. I've had or anxiety attacks, whatever you want to call them. I've had like 100, and they're awful. But does that mean if I call an ambulance and I get a ride for something minor and I show up to the hospital and they figure out you're actually okay, I'm still going to have to pay as much as someone who had a severe medical emergency and needed an ambulance? Absolutely. Would I still have to pay the same amount, or do they pay more depending on like what treatment you need in the ambulance?
country on Earth. If we have the resources and we're so much
Did I
better
make
than all the other countries, why is our health?
Look, there's a common thing that like Americans think we're so much better than other countries, and in some ways, that's true. But I really don't think you're going to find a lot of Americans, especially nowadays, in like a city that say like we're the best. Maybe you would. But in terms of healthcare, I think most Americans think we have bad healthcare. And like we wouldn't say, oh, ours is the best in the world. I'm getting defensive. Sorry.
Healthcare system so broken? Here's the thing. It's not broken. It's functioning exactly as you'd expect it to. America's healthcare system is for profit. That means instead of providing care because it's the ethical thing to do, they only do it because there's a big check involved. Back in the 30s, Blue Cross and Blue Shield were the two main health insurance providers in the US. In those days, they operated as nonprofits and wouldn't turn anyone away for any reason. Then, after World War II, employers started offering health insurance as a benefit, and between 1940 and 1955, the percentage of insured Americans jumped from 10% to over 60%. This new demand for health insurance caught the eye of many business people, and between 1940 and 1955, the percentage of insured Americans jumped from 10% to over 60%. This new demand for health insurance caught the eye of many business people, and the for-profit healthcare industry was born. By 1951, big names like Aetna and Cigna were major players in the industry, which continued to grow through the 70s and 80s. In the 80s, the country began to see its first for-profit hospitals, operated by large investors who owned multi-hospital chains. By 1981, 1 in 7 hospitals in the US was for-profit. Suddenly, medical bills became a lot longer and more convoluted. Every little thing became an itemized expense, from tissues to plastic cups to being able to hold your baby after it's born. The hospital's transition from philanthropy to corporation was complete. This is not normal in other countries. America had taken the intensely cruel step of taking something sacred, the health and well-being of its citizens, and slapping a price tag on it.
I don't think that was ever sacred in the U.S. I I really hope he gives, like, is there any like a pro-con list? Is there any positive to the American way of doing things? I'm not saying to override the negative, but I feel like I would give a lot more credence and credibility if you would just name, like, okay, the one thing that America, like, are you saying, like, it's, like, the American way of private-run hospitals provides no benefit? Like, do we get the best doctors over here? At least, like, what is the trade-off? Even if the trade-off isn't enough to make the system seem okay, like, is there anything that this is, like, are there the hospitals? I hear that there are extremely long waiting times for some people to get an appointment with a doctor in Medicare for all sort of NHS type things, right? So I like to hear an antithesis, even if it's a slight one. It helps me give a lot more credibility, because you're just making me think that everything about American medicine or doctor practices are all completely made to screw the individual and make the person make the most money as possible. And I just don't believe that. It might be heavily towards them, but you got to give me something, right? Disagree. I'm going to get people in the comments. I don't care. You can leave, all right? I'm just giving my opinion.
This commodification
Open mind. I'm willing to change, but I'm not afraid to speak what's on my head.
of health came
Deal.
unsurprising side effects. Average American life expectancy is lower than other wealthy countries and has actually begun to decrease in recent years compared to other countries slowly increasing. The US has the highest infant and maternal mortality rates of any developed country. The US has higher rates of medical errors than other countries. Adults in most other comparable countries have quicker access to a doctor or nurse when they need care, contrary to what American healthcare advocates would have you believe.
Okay, am I wrong?
To make a long story short,
maybe I'm
in just
wrong.
about every study on the effectiveness of healthcare systems in developed nations, America scores very poorly, most of the time at the very bottom of the list. And other nations are taking notice. Towards the beginning of the coronavirus epidemic, one university in Norway urged its students to come home if they were studying in countries with poorly developed health systems, such as the US. Part of the problem is the American obsession with streamlining or optimization. Anything that doesn't immediately increase profits has to go. Take, for example, the practice of so-called just-in-time delivery of essential equipment such as ventilators. Instead of having an emergency stockpile, including personal protective equipment such as masks and gloves, these items are instead delivered only when the need arises. The idea is to reduce overhead, but in reality it leaves us totally unprepared and under-equipped for a national pandemic. That's why we see pictures of doctors and nurses wearing trash bags, because their hospitals haven't provided adequate protective equipment, and just to be safe, they're firing people who post those kinds of pictures. To their credit, the CDC was planning to address the national shortage of ventilators, but the company to whom they had given the contract was bought out by a larger company, who canceled the project because it wasn't going to be profitable enough. And of course that larger company's name is Covidian, because the architects clearly put an intern in charge of our simulation. I could spend all day listing off instances of absurdly high medical bills, but at the end of the day, some people in America will still defend the practice of for-profit healthcare. Maybe the best way to get through to these people isn't to show them the bills, but to show them what people in other, saner countries think of the bills. So here you go.
Ambulance call out, how much do you think that costs?
Zero payment.
Zero payment?
Yeah, zero payment.
No. Because $2,500.
For real?
An inhaler.
$100.
Yeah, you're pretty close, it's a bit more.
120
250 to 350.
for an inhaler.
So 2 EpiPens, how much do you reckon they are?
$80.
600.
$600. What? Why?
100, 200.
Dollars.
Yeah.
The average is about 10 grand, it can go up to 30,000.
What?
$80.
600.
$600. What? Why?
100, 200.
Dollars.
Yeah.
The average is about 10 grand, it can
10 grand for an inhaler?
go up to
I thought you just said 800.
200.
dollars.
Yeah.
The average is about 10 grand, it can go up to 30,000.
10 grand! For a baby!
It's okay to laugh, it's a funny video. But these
Ha ha ha. Haha!
These are the types of reaction you get when you explain to anyone in a first world country besides the US just how screwed up our healthcare system is.
Oh, 10 grand for a baby. So that means it's like $10,000 for a woman to give birth in a hospital?
We're not paying these exorbitant fees for quality care. We're paying for executive bonuses, shareholder value, and lucrative contracts. Pharmaceutical
Give me one pro. Please, there has to be one positive thing to how we do it. Right?
and medical device companies can charge whatever they want, and the US government will never step in. We're one of the only nations on Earth that doesn't regulate the cost of drugs and medical supplies, and companies negotiate directly with hospitals and insurers to get the best terms. Not best for the patient, best for them. Drug costs in America are many times...
do we at least have the best doctors in the world? Like, tell me something so I don't get depressed.
Not best for the patient, best for them. Drug costs in America are many times higher than in any other country. Why? Because that's how it works in a for-profit system. The dollar holds infinitely more value to these corporations than human well-being. The needs of the people are secondary to the profit motive. The American healthcare system is a system that relies on people getting sick and coming in for treatment.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I guess.
Which is why we don't see any investment in well-being. The needs of the people are secondary to the profit motive. The American healthcare system is a system that relies on people getting sick and coming in for treatment. The American healthcare system is a system that relies on people getting sick and coming in for treatment, which is why the American healthcare system is a system that relies on people getting sick and coming in for treatment. The American healthcare system is a system that relies on people getting sick and coming in for treatment. Which is why we don't see any investment in public health initiatives. A program like Medicare for All would likely solve this and every other health problem produced by the coronavirus pandemic. Everyone would have been able to see a doctor and get tested, which would have given us more accurate data about the illness and its spread. Hospitals wouldn't have to waste energy dealing with private insurers and fighting them on every little thing. And with the profit motive removed from the healthcare equation, the government would have an incentive to prioritize public health to prevent people from getting sick instead of counting on it. That in turn would make us better prepared for the next pandemic. But remember, the system that we have isn't broken. It's functioning exactly as it's meant to. Why do we pay so much money for the worst care in the developed world? And more importantly, why do we put up with it? If you'd like to learn more about the virus that made it clear just how ill-prepared the US was for a pandemic, I highly recommend you check out the Corona...
I have a theory. This is the same thing with universal health care, with better transportation, is that people don't like other people in this country. And the idea that you're going to pay for someone else's stuff that might think politically different. My money's going to go to a Trump supporter. My money's going to go to a Biden supporter. F that. My money's going to go to someone in Virginia. And, God, we don't like each other over here. I think that's what European countries don't understand, is that a lot of these systems rely on you caring about other people in your country. That isn't a thing here.
Coronavirus epidemic on CuriosityStream. It's a fascinating look at how the world responds to a rapidly spreading virus and the measures we can take to stem the tide of infection. If you watch my videos, you'll know I'm a big fan of CuriosityStream. It's an online streaming service with thousands...
Oh my God, that was a crazy freaking video. Use this CuriosityStream, guys, /second thought, please. Jesus Christ.